Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm bringing you my honest review of Venom number 35, Legacy numbering, issue number 200, meaning that if you count up every single run of Venom, every single miniseries, every issue that has ever been published of Venom, it adds up to 200 total issues. And this is quite an anniversary issue, as well as the final issue of Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman's legendary run on Venom. Through the years of their run, I think it's been about 4 years, they've published different events like Absolute Carnage, King in Black most recently, and that was kind of the big finale to their run. So with this one, we got this huge, almost like trade paperback magazine style issue. We had a whole bunch of different artists on this book also. It was almost completely written by Donny Cates, except for a 10-page segment by Philip Kennedy Johnson. So I'll be talking about everything. We're going to be getting into heavy spoilers in this video. So if you'd like to read this issue before you actually watch this video, make sure to do that right now so that you don't get spoiled. This issue was actually pushed back, like, I think a total of 3 times. It's supposed to come out sometime in the middle of April, so now it's late June. It's been pushed back many times, the first couple times being just because the creators didn't get their work in on time. The final time, though, was because they ran out of printer paper. Marvel actually officially stated that, because it's such a big issue, they didn't have enough paper, so they had to push it back once again. So, what's the plan for the end of your Venom run? We're gonna end it with number 200, I've decided. That's an anniversary issue. How much are we charging here? $10. You know me well. Yeah, we'll have it ready by April. Wow, that's pretty soon. Are you sure about that? Well, we might end up needing an extra month. No problem. Or maybe 2. Okay. And once we're finally done, the printer might run out of paper. What? Now that it's finally out, I'm really happy to have this issue, and they wrapped it up pretty nicely. There are some unexpected twists and turns that I honestly did not expect. Spoilers for King in Black, but at the end of that mini-series, Eddie Brock was able to take down Null along with the help of like a Mjolnir and Silver Surfer's board combined in a crazy battle axe. But when he killed Null, the dark god of the symbiotes, he became the next King in Black. And that's really what was explored in this issue. What effects that actually has on Eddie, how it affects his son Dylan, and what that even means for the future of Venom comics. Since this run has ended, we've gotten the announcement of who the next writers on Venom are going to be. It's going to be Al Ewing and Ram V on writing, and then the artist is going to be by Brian Hitch. So that's like a decent creative team in my opinion. I'm the most excited to see what Ewing is going to do, because I haven't read that much of Ram V or Brian Hitch's work in the past. But let's get right into these issues. Like I said, heavy spoilers. I'm pulling this off the stand so that I can refresh my memory on everything that happened. We only have like about 20 pages that are actually drawn by Ryan Stegman himself, the main series artist, and I thought that he was going to be doing more. I thought that was the reason they were pushing it back so much, but it turns out that he's only doing like 1 regular issue's worth, about 20 pages of this actual comic. The issue starts off with just a look into what Eddie Brock being the King in Black means, and we see that now that he's become the King in Black, he's not going to be like Null. He's not just going to control all of these Clintar symbiotes to bend to his will like Null did, because he's not evil. So he's allowing them to just be free, roam however they want to. But basically what he's able to do now is he can be in any different spot at once. If there's a symbiote in any place, he can like take control of it with its permission and just shape into himself, his own Eddie Brock human form. And so he can be in many places at once. The only catch though is that he needs to be latched into this like hive mind, which is in his New York apartment where he's been living with his son Dylan. So we see him throughout this issue interacting with the Avengers, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, a whole bunch of other different heroes like Spider-Man, and there's some funny moments in this issue where we see him like tuning out and pausing in conversation with these different heroes so that he can say something else to a different person he's interacting with at the same time, like all the way across the galaxy. So we see that montage basically of all these different places he is in this segment drawn by Kev Walker. We see him battling on an alien planet with his symbiote friends, trying to fend off these like intergalactic invaders of this cute little lion species. So he's doing a lot of stuff at once, and he's realizing how powerful he is now. And we see in this shocking splash page of him turning around facing Dylan after he disconnects from the hive mind that this has caused him to become an old man. All of this stress and work has caused him to gray and grow a big beard, but he's not actually physically older. It's not like he's aging quicker or anything. This is just an example of how to show, you know, the toll that being this new King in Black has taken on him. In the next segment of the issue after the credits page, drawn by Danila S. Beyruth, we just see basically what life at home is for Eddie Brock and Dylan, and he says it himself, a stay-at-home dad now. He's always, of course, working with the hive mind and everything, but Eddie Brock himself pretty much never actually leaves his apartment at this point. Instead, if he wants to be somewhere, he just connects to one of the symbiotes, like I was saying earlier, and then interacts with whoever he needs to interact with. And at this point, Venom is not actually bonded to Eddie Brock anymore. It's basically just separate from him, and it's more watching over Dylan. But we see that Dylan has been getting into fights at school. Ever since he got his powers taken away from him, he used to have like anti-symbiote repellent powers that came into play in the King in Black event in Absolute Carnage. He got those taken away at the end of King in Black, which I completely forgot that even happened, but I guess it did. You know, so much stuff happens in all these different comics, sometimes you just forget what's been going on. And then in a segment written by classic Venom creator Ron Lim, we see Eddie Brock interacting with Spider-Man. They're meeting up after the big King in Black. Peter just wants to check in with Eddie about what has been actually going on, and he's kind of freaked out by how Eddie is just like a god now, basically. He's the new King in Black, and eventually Peter finds out that it's not actually Eddie who's sitting with him there at the coffee place. And I was noticing that it seems like this is the same coffee place where they met in Absolute Carnage a long time ago, so we get kind of a throwback to that when some robbers actually show up and try to rob them. Once again, it looks like it's the same shot as that Absolute Carnage issue way back, so that was a cool callback. Spider-Man is just concerned for Eddie Brock. He's asking if he needs any help. Eddie's just saying he could always use a friend, but he can handle this himself, no matter the stress that it's been causing him. He's been doing a good job handling it, and he's the right man for the job. And this segment, which was drawn by Guiu Villanova that I'm talking about right now, was probably the most important one that we're getting out of this whole issue, because it's really setting up an event that I think could take place in the future. We see Eddie Brock meeting with the Avengers, like I was saying, and he's telling them about the Maker, who is basically the Reed Richards of Reality 1610, better known as the Ultimate Universe. The Ultimate Universe is this Marvel universe that's completely separate from the main universe that most of the series take place in, and it was a whole line of comics that ran from I think the year 2000 until about 2015. That universe was supposed to have been completely obliterated in 2015's Jonathan Hickman's event Secret Wars, but most recently in Donny Cates' Venom Run, we've been seeing that might not actually be true. The Maker has popped up, and he was the Reed Richards of the Ultimate Universe. Somehow he has carried over to this universe. I don't know what the story behind that is, but there are some characters from the Ultimate Universe that have moved on to the regular one, like Miles Morales originally was in the Ultimate Universe. So in the recent Prey story arc of Donny Cates' run, we saw that he had gotten a hold of a symbiote from his previous world. He was trying to capture Eddie Brock and try to heal that symbiote because it was kind of damaged and broken from this destroyed reality. That story arc ended up resulting in this alternate universe, Reed Richards, the Maker, going through a dimensional rift and ending up in his old home dimension again. Everything was still there, just it was kind of apocalyptic. So it's looking like Eddie Brock is trying to figure out what the Maker's intentions are. He's saying that he thinks that the Maker is with the Council of Reeds, which we have that confirmed. That happened in an earlier issue of Venom. The Council of Reeds is this, council of all of the Reed Richards from every single dimension. So the Maker, being a Reed Richards of the Ultimate Universe, has met up with them. And Venom has figured out that he needs to prove to them that he's worth it. So they've tasked him with basically rebuilding the Ultimate Universe. And Venom is saying to Captain America in this scene that he thinks that the Maker is trying to take from their reality and basically just wipe it completely out and bring it to the Ultimate Universe so that it can be back to its former glory. So I'm really excited about this. We have not had anything confirmed, but I think this thread gets completely left. We don't have any wrap-up to it in this issue, and I think this could really result in an upcoming story arc or Marvel event. And then in the segment written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Gerardo Sandoval, it follows Flash Thompson. So this got me really excited, and it was a super, super good segment of this issue. Just a quick 10 pages, but a really good story that seems to set up the Extreme Carnage event really well. Philip Kennedy Johnson is going to be the main writer on that event, and it's supposed to just be following a lot of the different symbiotes in New York City, but not specifically the King in Black. And it's looking like Flash Thompson is going to be the main character. So Flash Thompson, of course, high school bully, he used to bully Peter Parker. He has become Venom since then. He had a long stint as Agent Venom. He worked for the US government and did missions for them. Since then, of course, he died in the Amazing Spider-Man series, but most recently in King in Black, he was brought back from the dead in this complicated way. You'd have to read the Venom tie-ins for King in Black to understand. But I'm really glad that he's finally back in New York City with his anti-Venom costume on, because he's one of my very favorite characters, especially as Venom. So in this little mini story, we see him just navigating New York City, and we see him come across these people who are some sort of organization. They're in green suits, and they tell him that they're guardsmen. That's what they're calling themselves. They're sanctioned to take out unauthorized symbiotes. So they've come into this coffee shop and seemingly just murder an innocent employee of the shop, but it turns out that he's in possession of a symbiote. And so these guardsmen are tracking down stray symbiotes from the King in Black invasion who have stuck around in New York City, and they're trying to wipe them out. So this story really sets up what I think the Extreme Carnage event is going to be all about. I had no idea because we didn't really have any details, but it's looking like it's going to be Flash Thompson, Scream, all of these other symbiotes defending other people with symbiotes from these guardsmen. So I can't wait to see what they can do with Extreme Carnage. But then in this second to last segment that we get of this issue, it's drawn by Mark Bagley, and it just shows what life at school is like for Dylan. Like I was saying earlier, he's been having some fights. He's feeling down ever since he lost his powers. He's not feeling special like he's sort of used to. And while he's walking home with, Venom in dog form to come home to his dad, he's also feeling neglected by Eddie since he's been in the hive mind for so long every single day trying to fix all these intergalactic problems. But we see him come across a woman being robbed in an alleyway by the jack-o'-lantern, which is another throwback to Donny Cates and Ryan Stegman. Way back at the beginning of their run in the very first issue, we saw this same jack-o'-lantern confronting, I think, robbing someone. So this is kind of the same scene, but revamped in a different way. And we see Dylan confronting this jack-o'-lantern. Despite not having any powers, he still wants to do good. And then in a really exciting scene, we see Venom decide to bond with Dylan for the first time, and they become the all-new Venom. There's a super cool splash page that we see here with this new Venom costume. It's basically just the exact same as the classic Venom, except now he's got chains all around his wrists. Just like the classic Todd McFarlane quote, "Kids love chains," and later on when he's talking to Eddie about it, Dylan references that he just put on the chains not for any practical use, but just because he thought they looked cool. So they take out this jack-o'-lantern, and basically Dylan is the new lethal protector of New York City. So this is a big revelation that I was not expecting. I guess I should have known that they were going to pass on the mantle to some new hero to actually be protecting New York City and be a classic Venom, because at this point Eddie Brock isn't really Venom anymore. He's moved on to something bigger. Now he's this protector of the galaxy, and he's at many different places at once. It's not quite the same Venom as we used to know. So finally, in this last kind of heartwarming scene, we see Eddie, this now crippled old man, talking to Dylan and telling him that he knew this was going to happen sometime. He didn't know when it was going to happen, but he figured that at some point Dylan and Venom would bond and then become the new Venom of New York City. So I'm excited to see where they go with this. Of course, now Dylan has Eddie's blessing. As long as he stays safe with that symbiote, he is able to go out and fight crime again. And in this final page of their run, we see the new Venom and Dylan Brock swinging away with their new chains, which are like the replacement webs at this point. So I don't know what to expect from this next run of Venom. The way they've left it off here, it seems like Dylan could be the next focus, the next main character of Venom, except that from the preview art and everything that we've actually seen from Al Ewing and Ram V's upcoming Venom run, it seems like it's going to be more focusing on Eddie Brock. So my prediction is that maybe they're going to have two different ongoing Venom series, one following Dylan Brock and Venom back in New York City, like a more gritty street-level series, and then the big visionary, intergalactic epic of Ram V and Al Ewing's run will be following Eddie Brock and all of his different adventures in space and all across the galaxy. Either way, I'm excited to see what's going to come for Venom in that new Venom run starting in November, but of course Extreme Carnage is the next thing that's actually happening soon. That is starting in July, so I'm really excited to see what they do with that. Can't wait to see more of Flash Thompson. But for this issue specifically, I gotta give you guys a rating. I usually give you something, out of 10 for these single issue reviews. For this one, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So close to a complete 10 out of 10, except that the art, I think, was kind of a letdown. The story also wasn't super exciting. There wasn't any, really big events going on or anything like they hyped it up to be. It was just kind of like a day in the life of this new Eddie Brock, and then passing on the mantle to Dylan Brock. And like I was saying, some of that art wasn't quite as good as I might have liked it to be, but we still had like at least half of the issue, some pretty solid art by Ryan Stegman, Gerardo Sandoval, Mark Bagley. Those were my favorite artists on this book. So that pretty much wraps up today's review. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did like it at all, make sure to subscribe. That's the big red button, which is sitting right below this video. You can also hit the notifications bell, which is sitting right next to it. You'll be notified every single time I post a new video if you don't want to miss any. So that's everything for me for today. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Bye, guys.